Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Hope you're doing well. Today we are attending to change the rear differential fluid in my 2020 BMW M340i xDrive. The procedure should be the same for rear-wheel drive and other makes and models as well, specifically the Toyota Supra A90, A91, but all changes are pretty much very similar across all makes and models, but there are certain types of European cars that do not have a drain plug at the rear differential, or even sometimes the front differential as well, that you'll have to siphon the old fluid out. For my application, you can see we have a temperature sensor. That's your temperature sensor that we are going to use as our drain plug. This is our fuel plug. Whenever you're attending differential fluid servicing, it's always important to undo the fuel plug first, just in case that any events you can get the drain. Actually, the other way around. If you couldn't get the fuel plug off, but you've already drained the oil, then you're out of luck. So that's why I'm saying it's important to undo the fuel plug first, and then drain the oil after. And then plug it back in, plug the fuel plug back in after you refill it, call it done. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to undo the fuel plug first. That's a 60 Newton meter. 35-ish foot-pound of torque. Not a lot, not less either. And then the drain plug, which is our temperature sensor. Just in case that you're wondering, you see like all these kind of black coating on my rear diff because the previous owner had it undercoated before I have the car. And this is the mess I'm left with. It's not tacky anymore, it's been on forever, but just the look of it. I already have gone ahead and unplugged the temperature sensor. There is just a tab right here at the top. That's how it goes in. And the tab, it's at the top of the connector, so you just press this in and then it's gonna open like the locking tab, and then just unplug it. Next I'm gonna try to get this sensor connector out of the way. We'll deal with it later. And I'm gonna attempt to remove the temperature sensor. Before I plug back in the temperature sensor, I'm just gonna run a tiny bit of the fluid I'm gonna put back in to fill up the differential. Not a lot, just a little bit, so that I'm not wasting material. But I'm gonna run through the fuel plug. So that it drains a little bit more. Personal preference, not necessarily needed, but it's just something I do. I can kind of see from what's dripping, it's running clearer now. So I'm gonna clean up a little bit, or let it drip a little bit more, I guess. Clean it up, put back in the temp sensor, you know, because it was a drain for us at this time. And then I'm gonna fill back up until it flows out. And plug back in the fill plug. Should be as easy as that. Forward it back in. Well, it's hard not to be in your way. I should probably mention, there is a little washer in here. Just make sure you retain that. And then it's gonna press against the differential cover. It's always stuck with hand tight, especially this is a sensor. And then torque it down. You gotta look up the torque spec. I believe it's 14 Newton meter. I'm in a cramped space right now, that's why I talk weird. Just double check. So it is 14 Newton meter, or 10.3 foot-pound of torque. Should be a little bit over hand tight, really. 14.1, good enough. And I think I'm gonna clean it up before. No, actually, I'm gonna do it after. Yeah, so now just fill it back up. You're gonna still need your drain pan over here, because you're gonna fill it until it overflows. Manual size is gonna be 0.9 liters. And you know what? I think I'm gonna plug it back in first. I don't want any weird stuff into my connector. Is it this way? I'm pretty sure it is. I heard the audible click. Back in place. Wiggle it. It's not going anywhere. Alright, now it's pouring out. I guess about 50 to 100 mil of new fluid to pump out the old fluid. If you remember in the beginning when I was draining it, I think that's why I needed the third bottle. I'm just gonna let it drain a little bit, just so I'm not overflow badly. And I'm gonna plug it, the fuel plug it back in, torque this back, clean up whatever this mess is, and it will be good to go. And also note again how the new fluid is, like now it's dripping. You can see it's greenish color, has a little bit of green tint to it, and earlier it was brown, close to black in color. The car has 65 63,000 kilometers on it, about 35,000 miles, I guess. I don't know how much it's supposed to be for conversion, but yeah, it's always a good idea to change oil when you can get them. I'm using OEM, that's why it's hard to come by. If you're using like M3 or so, should be pretty easy and cheaper too. But I like to play it safe, especially with this car, that I'm just gonna use OEM oil for the differential. Probably gonna go with something else with the transmission fluid later on down the road. Right now, like I said, it's like what, 63,000 kilometers. I'm not too worried about changing transmission oil yet, but it is in the plan down the road. And yeah, like I said, I'm just gonna plug the fuel plug back in, torque it to spec, which is 60 Newton meter. I don't know how much it's gonna be with foot pound. You probably need a conversion if you do wonder how many foot pound that's gonna be, but that's what I'm gonna do. And that's all for the job. Oh, and also with the new fuel plug, or with fuel plug in general, it's not ridiculously expensive even though it's from a dealership. So I always just use a new one. It's like 15 Canadian dollars. Why am I saying that, or why am I using a new one? Because there is a seal, like the green seal right there. You never know what's gonna happen with the old one, and it's cheap insurance for like $15 Canadian, whatever it is for American, probably $10 or so. And just like the drain plug or the temp sensor, and thread it so that you don't create any problem. And now it's tight. Torque it down. It's awkward with the camera, but I will find the angle. Alright, 60. That's great. Alright, clean it up, and that's all for the job. I'll lower the vehicle, start the car, run around the block, and make sure there is no leak afterward. Yeah, and that should be all. Just came back from a 5 kilometers drive, which is about like 3 miles of a drive. Neighborhood, take turns, etc. I don't really see any leaks at all, which is a good sign. If there is anything that would have been leaking, would it leak by now? I don't really feel anything that's like improved from before I changed the Diff fluid, which is expected not to have any impact, which is also a good sign. Just means that it's working as supposed to be. So I think we can conclude the job right now. When you're servicing differential fluid change, I think it's really important to make sure that your car is level on the ground. I do have the luxury of having 2 trolley jacks for me to use to jack up the front and the back almost at the same time. Most people may not, but it doesn't really matter. I just use the second as a fail-safe for me. I would normally jack up the front and then slide 2 jack stands underneath, or as you can see, block of wood. and then after it's leveled on or the car is seated on the jack stand or the block of wood, you would move the trolley jack to the rear, kind of go from like the side skirt over to the rear differential, not the cover. Make sure that you're using the actual rear differential. Jack it up the back and then slide to jack stand underneath the rear jacking points for the vehicle. But for me, I do have 4 of those wood block. That's 2x4s and like I believe 4 to 5 layers. So that's like 8-inch to 10-inch off the ground. That should be more than enough for me to attend servicing the differentials. Yeah, so this is what I'm gonna be doing. Like I said, jack stand will work just as good, if not even better. But yeah, just make sure safety first as always. You can't always rely on just the floor jack. You should never trust hydraulic alone. Jack stand use mechanical advantage to make sure that the vehicle is not going to be falling on top of you. That will be an unfortunate event, of course. Safety first, guys. Safety first. For my car, I do have a drain plug, technically a drain plug, which is the temperature sensor, to drain out the old fluid. Like I said earlier, some cars may not have it specifically European. I had an F30 before that didn't have a drain at all, only the fill bolt. So I was forced to siphon out the old fluid from the fill bolt or the fill hole, which I had to use one of these so that attached to the end of this, and then you hook this one into the fill hole so that it siphons out from the casing of the differential. So yeah, this is something nice to have. I had it from the old F30 days, and then you just siphon using the hand pump. I had a little bit of a struggle because it was just a cramped space. I'm not a small guy particularly. If you are able to afford something like this will be good as well. You simply just put it into your bottle and then you just pump out the new fluid into the casing or the differential. This is something also good to have. I'm saving this one for the transmission later on. That's why I'm not using it for differential. I'm not a big fan of cross-contamination of oil. That's why I'm just saving this one for the transmission and not using it for the differentials. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked the video, learned a thing or two. Like, comment, subscribe. If you do have any question, let me know. I'll try my very best to answer you. Alright, hope you have a good day, wherever you are, whenever you are watching.